Sir Archibald Alison, 1st Baronet GCB FRSE, was a Scottish advocate and historian. He held several prominent legal appointments. He was the younger son of the Episcopalian cleric and author Archibald Alison. His elder brother was the physician and social reformer William Alison. Background: he was born at the parsonage at Kenley, Shropshire, to the Rev. Archibald Alison and his wife Dorothea Gregory, daughter of John Gregory, and granddaughter of James Forbes, 17th Lord Forbes. In 1800 his parents moved the family back to Edinburgh. His father thought that he could give his sons a better education and more independent careers in Scotland. After studying under a private tutor, and at the University of Edinburgh, he was, in 1814, admitted to the Faculty of Advocates, at which he ultimately attained some distinction, becoming in 1834 Sheriff of Lanarkshire. In 1853, he received an honorary doctorate of civil law by the University of Oxford. The University College London, Legacies of British Slave Ownership. Two projects based at UCL tracing the impact of slave ownership on the formation of modern Britain highlight that Sir Archibald Alison, 1st Bar, benefited from the compensation paid out following the abolition of slavery in 1833. According to the record, he benefited from a payment of £4,081, 1810d, and approximate £346,000 in 2015, made by the Government of United Kingdom and Great Britain as recorded by the Slave Compensation Commission and the records held at the National Archives in London. The record containing the facts discovered can be found at the UCL's Legacies of British Slave Ownership database, and the National Archive and the records of the Slave Compensation Commission. Writings. When traveling in France in 1814, he conceived the idea of his expansive history of Europe from the commencement of the French Revolution to the restoration of the Bourbons. This multi-volume set is usually regarded as Alison's chief historical work and is considered to be the first scholarly English-language study of the French Revolution. Published in 10 volumes between 1833 and 1843, History of Europe was revised and reprinted many times throughout the century, including numerous foreign language editions. The work is one of vast industry, contain a wealth of information communicated in a vigorous though wordy style. Disraeli satirizes the author in Coningsby as Mr. Wordy, who wrote a history to prove that Providence was on the side of the Tories. Such criticism notwithstanding, History of Europe proved to be a huge commercial success. By 1848, 100,000 copies had been sold in the United States. It was translated into French, German, and even Arabic, in which language 2,000 copies were published under the auspices of the Pasha of Egypt. Alison also composed a comprehensive survey of the military campaigns of the Duke of Marlborough, as well as 2 standard works on the criminal law of Scotland. Rector. He was elected Lord Rector successively of Marischal College, Aberdeen, and of the University of Glasgow. In 1852, he was created a baronet during Lord Derby's administration. Family and death. In 1825, he married Elizabeth Glencairn, the daughter of Patrick Tytler. The children from the marriage were Archibald, Frederick and Ella Frances Catherine, who married James Charlemagne Dormer. Both sons became distinguished British officers. The first baronet's autobiography was published in 1883. His portrait was painted by Robert Scott Lauder. Alison died at Postle House, Glasgow, at the age of 74, and was interred in Dean Cemetery, Edinburgh. He enjoyed great popularity in Glasgow. His funeral was attended by a crowd of from 100,000 to 150,000 people. His grave lies amid the Lord's Row against the western wall, and is modest in comparison to most in this section. He was succeeded in the baronetcy by his elder son, Sir Archibald Alison, 2nd Baronet. Works: History of Europe from the commencement of the French Revolution in 1789 to the restoration of the Bourbons in 1815. Principles of the Criminal Law of Scotland. Practice of the Criminal Law of Scotland. Principles of Population and the connection with human happiness. England in 1815 and 1845. Free trade and a fetid currency. The military life of John, Duke of Marlborough. Essays, Political, Historical and Miscellaneous Volume I, Volume 2, Volume 3, History of Europe from the fall of Napoleon in 1815 to the accession of Louis Napoleon in 1852. The Currency Laws. Lives of Lord Castlereagh and Sir Charles Stewart. Some Account of My Life and Writings, an Autobiography Volume I, Volume 2, Articles, The Increase of Crime, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LV, Causes of Increase of Crime, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LVI, Lamartine, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LVI, Gizzo, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LVI, Homer, Dante, and Michelangelo, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LVII, British History during 18th Century, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LVII, Virgil, Tasso, and Raphael, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LVII, Hannibal, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LVII, Marlborough, Noah, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LVII, Montesquieu, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LVII, Humboldt, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LVII, Marlborough, No. 2, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LVII, Marlborough, No. 3, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume Lix, The Roman Campagna, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume Lix, The Fall of Rome, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume Lix, Marlborough's Dispatches, 1708 to 1709, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume Lux, The Romantic Drama, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume Lux, Marlborough's Dispatches, 1710 to 1711, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume Lux, Marlborough's Dispatches, 1711 to 1712, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume Lux, The British Theatre, Part 1. The Dublin University Magazine, Volume XLVII, The British Theatre, Part 2. The Dublin University Magazine, Volume XLVII, Eugene, Marlborough, Frederick, Napoleon, and Wellington, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LXI, Lessons from the Famine, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LXI, M. de Tocqueville, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LXI, 30 Years of Liberal Legislation, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LXII, Fall of the Throne of the Barricades, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LXII, The Revolution in Europe, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LXII, How to Disarm the Chartists, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LXII, The Navigation Laws, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LXIV, Continental Revolutions, Irish Rebellion, English Distress, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LXIV, The Year of Revolutions, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LXV, Free Trade at its Zenith, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume LXVI, The Year of Reaction, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXVII, The Ministerial Measures, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXVII, Free Trade Finance, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXVII, Chateaubriand's Memoirs, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXVII, Ledru Roland on England, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXVII, Foreign Affairs, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXVII, Ancient and Modern Eloquence, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXVII, The Currency Extension Act of Nature, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXIX, Biography, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXIX, The Dangers of the Country, External, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXIX, The Dangers of the Country, Our Internal Dangers, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXIX, The Dinner to Lord Stanley, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXIX, Aeschylus, Shakespeare and Schiller, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXIX, The Census and Free Trade, Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine, Volume. LXX,